Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for checking us out. We're coming at you with a new podcast. I have my co-host here,
David Okendo.
and my name is Jose Rodriguez. Just wanted to bring a new, fresh perspective with a different podcast. If some of you guys have seen me on my other podcast and Dave on a lot of his content online, we just wanted to discuss a little bit about the name, right?
Yeah, and our own sort of interpretation of the title of the podcast. I mean, for me, I think the title came up because during my interview with you, which is on Spotify, I think I said that words are tough, and I don't know. I completely forgot the context of it, but that could give you the incentive to actually listen to the podcast, to that episode. But for me, I guess not to go too deep into it, but I feel like a lot of dialogue these days when it comes to news, media, and TikTok, social media, stuff like that, everything is sort of like compacted to like a soundbite and like overly simplified, and there's no nuance to anything anymore. It's either black or white, like literally black or white, or it's so words are tough is just kind of like, you know, it's hard to even explain the titles. It's just kind of hard to explain it. And I guess this podcast, at least for me, it'd be more talking about things that I can't do in like 10 minutes on my YouTube page. It's, you know, we have a longer format. I mean, it won't be like 3 hours long, but be a longer format than more than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely. I think just to give a little context from the time when when that came up in the episode, something that happened was things were getting a little heated in the episode because my old co-host Mike, he just out of nowhere started hating on wingdings.
Yeah, the font wingdings.
Yeah, and then we started going off on our favorite emojis, and that just even got him even more upset that we were talking about emojis on the podcast, our favorite ones. And then we were talking about how he was saying wingdings are symbols, and we were like, letters are symbols.
Yeah, like yeah, but wingdings aren't letters; they're just symbols. Like, but letters, the alphabet is a bunch of symbols.
Yeah, we'll send the clip from that episode so you guys can see it. It actually was really cool. And then out of nowhere, he was upset, and he said, you know, I try to use words every day, you know, and then that's when you said,
oh, yeah, words are tough.
And kind of try to make him feel a little better about the whole situation. I thought that was cool. It was like in a song, when you listen to a song, it hits that one line that you're like, damn, that's the line. You know, I felt like that was the one line from the whole podcast that really resonated with me. So
I actually don't remember saying it until I reheard it after, and I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty profound on my part. It's like a happy accident, I guess you can say.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I want to not start off with like, we're both Puerto Rican, I think.
I'm Guatemalan.
You're Guatemalan?
Yeah.
Damn, this whole time I'm thinking
the third person today alone.
You're very Puerto Rican.
Yeah, that's what
you're very. You're wearing a Mets shirt or Mets. We have Mike Piazza right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
My girlfriend's Puerto Rican too.
Okay, then there you go. You're Puerto Rican by again, what's that word? Association. There you go. But like my mom used to just make up words, or she doesn't use it. She still does. Like just words like googleao or googleo, which it just means Google it or I'll Google it.
Oh yeah.
Another word is like she says, oh, I'm gonna check something. She's like, oh, chequeando. I'm like, chequeando. She's like, yeah. Chequeando.
I actually say that, you know.
Chequeando. And the worst one, I caught her saying this. I was like, oh, what color is that? And she's like, oh, it's brown. I'm like, brown? She's like, yeah, brown. I'm like, you're just saying brown and rolling the R.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is brown in Spanish? She's like, oh, and she had to think about it. She's like, oh, marrón. I was like, oh, thank you. Like, this is why I don't speak a lick of Spanish, because this woman this is my mom, just creates her own language, and it kind of rubbed off on me as well. But yeah, it's a funny language is a funny, or words are a funny thing, I guess, when it comes to communicating. But I think at the end of the day, as long as two or more people understand each other, like what does it matter if they're speaking a I guess you can say established language of sorts.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
you get that like connection with some people too, where sometimes you don't even have to talk. You know.
Yeah,
It's
true.
Like, you just look at each other from the corner, and especially friends that like you drink with and things like that. Like sometimes you'll get in a situation and you'll know like exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah. Come to think of it, I don't want to sound straight edge because I'm not. I haven't drank alcohol in a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or at least socially, I did. The last time I drank was with my partner a few months ago. We drank Mead, and it's weird. Like when it comes to alcohol, like if I see a Coors, I'm like, I'm okay. But if I see like something interesting and a cool bottle, and I'm like, what is that? Like I'll try that thing.
Yeah.
But Mead is a cool alcoholic beverage. Have you heard of Mead?
Yeah, I have.
It
goes back like centuries, right?
Yeah, like Viking time.
Yeah.
But I was playing this game called Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and they referenced Mead, and I was asking her like, what's Mead? And she's like, oh, it's like a honey wine. I'm like, honey wine? And I love honey, sadly. Oh, well, it's good for you, but not too much. It's like, it's a dose that matters.
I saw that they sell like the little honeycombs too, right?
Yeah, you can buy like a literally a dish like that big of just a solid honeycomb. Yeah. I'll put a spoon and just eat it. It's terrible for me.
I've been wanting to get a piece of honeycomb.
It's really bad. I mean, well, it's good, but like anything, it's the dose. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, you can have it once in a while, but don't just have a whole brick of honeycomb in one
But it's
sitting.
like real unfiltered honey is like a superfood, right?
Yeah. I actually I wrestled in high school, and my senior year, I used to just get a spoonful of honey and just eat it before a match.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, at first I was 119 pounds, like 3% body fat, which is ridiculous at my height. I mean, I'm not tall at all, but I used to just, when you're just that lean and that like malnourished, like any bit of anything like really takes effect. But we're kind of going everywhere, or at least I am. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those days. It was the opposite for me.
True.
I was like wrestling 215, and I would bump up. I was at like 205, like personally. Wow. So I'd wrestle 215, and then they'd bump me up to heavyweight. So sometimes I'd be like 205 wrestling someone that's 260.
What year did you wrestle?
I wrestled 2000 through 2003.
So not 2004?
I wrestled the beginning half of the year and not like the States or anything like that.
Yeah, because, well, I used to live in, can we say the town we're in right now?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
No, that's fine, yeah.
We're in Garfield, New Jersey right now, Bergen County. Well, I used to live here many years ago and moved to Pompton Lakes. And every other year we would wrestle Garfield, or they'll come to us or we'll go to them. And sometimes I'll see you or like old friends. And it was kind of awkward because I think if any kid as a teenager has any confidence, it's complete fake confidence. It's not real confidence. They can fake it. But yeah, that age, people say, oh, would you do like, your high school years again? Yes and no. Like I didn't enjoy high school like socially in any way, like which is awkward. But if I could, I'll be like, okay, do this, 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 and this. Don't talk to that person. Befriend this person, and I'll probably do things differently. But if I had the option, probably not.
Yeah, like what's that movie? Isn't there like a movie with like Lizzie McGuire or something like that? She goes back to high school.
There's a lot of
there's
a lot of those. Let's go back to high school movies. Or just
I mean, one thing I would definitely do is well, you know what? I did play sports, so that's not something I would say. But I definitely feel like I would have gotten, if I could go back to my younger years, I definitely would have started earlier. That's something I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Me and my brother, pretty much anything my brother did, I did. So if he played baseball, I played baseball. If he did football, I did football. So even with jiu-jitsu, he started jiu-jitsu and got me into it. And then I just kept doing it for 13 years, and I'm still doing it. And it's like, oh, look at me. I'm a black belt all of a sudden. And I think jiu-jitsu is a funny thing because I just love how every time I'm bumping the table, I keep seeing that shake. But jiu-jitsu is a weird thing because I see a lot of like people on like Reddit forums and Facebook forums, like, how do you do this and how do you do that? What's the best thing for strength? What's the best thing for cardio? And my instructor, Luis Ventalora, would just say, just train jiu-jitsu. Like, it's not rocket science. Just show up and train. And it's true, but I think a lot of people may have injuries, may have like, I guess like a better word, issues. And okay, like, well, I have this injury that will never go away. How do I still train as consistently as possible, but like acknowledging this sort of injury? I think when people quit jiu-jitsu, is kind of that happens where there's an obstacle and they can't seem to figure it out, and they just kind of like, okay, let me just stop.
Yeah. I train at Silver Fox, and I took a break right when COVID started, so I'm not currently there. But while I was there, one of the seminars we did, the guy, he doesn't have like feeling in his legs.
Oh.
So he's kind of handicapped. Well, he is handicapped, but I mean, he's kind of handicapped in the sense where like he still rolls. He got his black belt.
As in, he's not like able-bodied, I guess you can say.
Yeah, he kind of figured out his game on the ground and stuff like that, and he competed, and you know
That's
what I mean.
cool.
Like, yeah, like. So I thought that was a really cool, and obviously I think that's why Carl brought him to show us that like some people have like weaknesses in their game,
right?
But this guy, like he didn't give a shit that he has a major weakness and he still overcame that. So, like you said, an injury.
Yeah.
It's
like that scene from not Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Is it Mexico? Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Mexico with Johnny Depp and what's he? Salma Hayek, I think she's in it as well. But there's a scene where Johnny Depp asks, "Are you a Mexican or a Mexicant?" And he's like, "I'm a Mexican." And they're like, and then I don't know. It was ever since then I was like, I like that. Like, are you Puerto Rican or Puerto Ricant? But it's true though. I mean, I hate to sound like a bro, like a gym rat, but you just kind of have to just show up and not have excuses. Or you can have excuses, but don't let that deter you from like reaching, I guess in this case, your jiu-jitsu goals. If anything, it should push you even further to do those things.
Yeah, definitely. And when I started jiu-jitsu, it was like maybe like September, October, and then right around December is when I found out my mom had gotten cancer. And I just feel like going through that whole time with jiu-jitsu and like my journey, it kind of like really got me through that time. It's
right.
And it's so weird when I hear people say things like that sometimes online, and I'm just like, oh, like that's cool. But like even now I haven't thought of that, but like it's true. These kind of things like do help you get through stuff. So I don't know if I wasn't in jiu-jitsu what I would have used to get through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my sister had cancer as well. Sadly, it was right like in the middle of the pandemic, and like everything was shut down for like 6 months. And yeah, that was a different experience altogether. But by the way, I'm a teacher. I don't tell you, I'm an art teacher. So I've been teaching art online since like last March, and we're finally going back in person next week. I mean, I don't know when this is coming out, but in April. So, but I'm looking forward to it. It's overall very not to make this into a COVID pandemic podcast, but overall,
we can't escape it.
Yeah, you can't. It's like one of those things. But overall, it was just a really tough time, and as a teacher, my goal was just, I tell my students this all the time, like I'm just trying to be as empathetic and understanding as possible, but I can't, like you guys don't even turn on your microphones or your cameras, so I'm just looking at a bunch of squares and names. So if you're not having a good day, you kind of have to tell me. Like if you just don't say anything. So I mean, but at the same time, maybe this kid is in an environment that they can't turn on their mic because so and so is yelling, or some person won't put down the music, or maybe they're not even home. Maybe they're in a car because their mom won't let them stay home, and it's like a lot of stuff happening. Like, and when I find like. I don't want to give like my students like stuff out there, but
yeah,
they're going through a lot. They're going through a lot, and this is like middle, like these are kids from Newark, and like they're having a hard time. I mean, I don't know how it is in like the Midwest or like other suburbs, but Newark was, I think, hit the second hardest. Was Jersey City, and then Newark, and I think Elizabeth.
Yeah, Newark definitely. They had like their own shutdowns like before everyone else, and yeah,
it was actually it was the late January where my principal was telling me, yeah, we might actually shut down. They're like, really? They're like yeah, this thing is serious. This was like in January of like last year, and then we had our like a meeting, and then like March was just like no more, like, and everyone's like, what do we do? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean I don't know? Like, no one has done this before.
Yeah.
This is like a new thing, and no one has the right answers. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people are like Captain Hindsight. Any situation that it's Captain Hindsight.
Captain Hindsight. That's pretty good.
Captain, I didn't make it up. That's actually a South Park reference.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, there's a character called Captain Hindsight where he will show up to like a fire and he's like, "You should have done this. You should have done that." He's like, "Think of Captain Hindsight." He just flies away. He doesn't do anything at all.
So true.
But I feel some people, when it comes to any issue, like it could be from MMA and like predicting who's gonna do what and who's gonna win, to like some political issue, to some catastrophe. Like, yeah, after the fact, of course you can say whatever you want, but like no one could have predicted. I mean, unless you're Bill Gates, but then people think that I think people think Bill Gates is a devil right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know why people hate Bill Gates so much.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day and it was like, you couldn't even save Windows from a virus. You think you could save us? So,
that's true. Yeah, Windows always has every day, like Windows has a virus.
Maybe that's what it is. He has like a complex that he couldn't stop the viruses on Windows, you know? So
I
it's
guess.
kind of like a thing in his mind. But yeah, there's a lot of conspiracies with Bill Gates and like the vaccines and the foundations. So
yeah, I mean, I got my second dose today.
You feel fine?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Could you imagine if just like in the middle of the podcast, just, like, turn into like
I just vomit everywhere. Like
I was gonna go more like you turn into like
a lizard,
praying mantis or
like
something.
a lizard person, or
at least it's recorded.
That'd be interesting.
Good content.
But yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna go, I want it to be monetized.
Definitely, there'll be a Google Play ad for that. Yeah, but you were talking about MMA, and I know you recently there was just a really big fight. Did you watch the Ngannou fight?
The Francis Stipe fight?
Yeah.
I did see it. I won't claim if I paid for the pay-per-view, but I did see the fight. But it was... This is actually one of the first times where who I wanted to win and who I... So... For me, when it comes to predicting fights, is either who do I want to win, like the desire, like I want this person to win, or who do I actually think is going to win. So this is the first time where who I wanted to win actually won. So, you know, because sometimes you say, like when the Charles Oliveira fight against Tony Ferguson, I wanted Tony Ferguson to win, but I felt like Oliveira, since like the past 5 years, has been progressively getting better, and I was like, I don't know, I think he's peaking. I think this is like him peaking right now. These next 2-3 years, Charles Oliveira is gonna be a monster. I mean, he's been a monster, but like, and but so with the Francis Stipe fight, I felt like I want Francis to win. I just didn't feel like he was gonna win because he already lost to the same guy before. His wrestling he doesn't have that much wrestling. He had enough wrestling for this fight. Enough to that one sprawl in the first round, but he did enough to stay on his feet to win, which he couldn't do the first fight. Yeah, and definitely. You wrestled and I wrestled. It's not a thing that you can learn in like a week.
Yeah, definitely not.
Like you can develop a pretty solid jab in a month, or jab cross in a month. You know, just keep reps. Yeah, but like wrestling, it's at a later age, when you're like in your 30s.
Yeah, people got to break you a bunch of times. Yeah, you got to get broken. Just like jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is similar, but it's a different type of breaking.
I mean, I did Muay Thai for about 2 years. I don't know what I was doing, but I did it for 2 years. And there is a instant satisfaction to striking. Like you hear that mitt hit or the glove hit the mitt, like, and you, like when you hit, I don't know, it's this immediate satisfaction of hitting the mitt or hitting the bag or kicking it, and you feel like, oh wow, awesome, like I think I can actually go fight now. And I mean, obviously you can't. I mean, there's more to it. But jiu-jitsu, you don't feel any sense of satisfaction for like a year, if that. Like you don't feel like you're doing anything. You're just swimming in like quicksand or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I love it. And also, I play a lot of chess.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've gotten like pretty far in that. Like at one point when I was in high school, I beat the whole school and all the teachers. So that was pretty good. And then now I just got back into it during the pandemic. I was like, oh yeah, chess exists.
I'm good at this thing I forgot about.
Yeah. So then once you get back into it, then of course there's always like the evil bosses all the way up. You know? Right. So it reminds me of jiu-jitsu.
Did you see the Queen's Gambit?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit though, it gave me this false sense of confidence. Like, yeah, I'm gonna learn chess now. No, I literally pulled out my old chess piece, and it was like actually the same chess piece in X-Men where Magneto and Professor X play. It was like it was that, and I set it up, and I'm like, I'm gonna learn chess, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at, and I just put it back in the closet. I was like, I'm good, and then I ended up picking up archery instead.
Nice.
But my mom can't. I think I'm gonna mention my mom a lot in this podcast, but my mom can't seem to remember any of the titles of shows that we watch. Like, she couldn't remember the Queen's Gambit. She's like, the Gambit lady? And then I'm like, what? The chess lady show. I'm like, oh, the Queen's Gambit? She's like, yeah, the Queen's Gambit. I'm like, and she couldn't remember the Mandalorian. She just said, oh, I want to watch like the Green Baby. And I'm like, oh, the Mandalorian. Okay. But the Queen's Gambit is one of those. The thing that's scary about that, I'm always thinking. First, I just like watching movies and shows and stuff. But if I was like, okay, if I was one of my students, how would I interpret this? And the thing I didn't like about Queen's Gambit, it kind of made it as if though this sort of tranquilizer drug was like.
Yeah, she was like the Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, and I'm like, what are we telling people? Like, take tranquilizers and stare at the ceiling, and somehow you'll be like a chess genius. Like, I don't. What are we communicating here?
Yeah, it was really wild for me, and to be honest with you, I kind of started it like hating on it, because you know when something like you really love gets taken, and you're like, oh, what are they gonna do with this? And then that girl, she was cool. She was really great in The Witch. If anyone hasn't seen that, check that out.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips of it. It looks really good.
Yeah, but I've seen her getting used more. Like, she's gotten so big that they like just grab her and just use her like to make things bigger. You know, like, so I'm like, what is this? Then I found out a little later that this movie was something Heath Ledger was working on before he died.
No way.
Yeah, it was going to be a movie, and he might have started it. He wasn't, but he was developing it. And then they made it into a show like 10 years later. Or, you know, however long. I think maybe 8 years he died.
I think he passed 2007?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so then it's...
I was in college still.
Okay,
so
so that's been more than 10
forever
years.
Ago.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right, let me give this a chance. I don't think he'd mess around. He wasn't messing around at that time with, like, his choices, you know? So I was like, let me check this out. And it was really good. Yeah. But, yeah.
Is he a part of the 27 Club?
I'm not sure.
So,
I don't think so.
So the 27 Club, in case some of you guys don't know, well, you do some quick research. And I was telling this to my students about the 27 Club, and because it's an art class and we just have random conversations sometimes while they're making art. And it's pretty much a group of creative people that coincidentally all passed away at the age of 27. Like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain.
Yep.
I don't think Bob Marley.
No.
I think he's a bit older.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Bob Marley, half white. Believe it or not.
What?
Yes.
No.
Bob Marley's dad was a British naval captain.
Wow, I didn't know that. Damn.
we had a discussion. This is years back in my art class. We talked. Honestly, I wish I could record my art classes because that could be a podcast all by itself.
Yeah.
We started listing off like famous black people, I put in quotes, black people that had a white parent, like Halle Berry, Lenny Kravitz, Barack Obama. We just mentioned him, Bob Marley. And there's a good amount of, like, you can say black creatives that were, you know, I hate to say the word mixed, but, you know, had parents are of another ethnicity other than black.
Yeah.
Or even Bruce Lee wasn't 100% Chinese. He was actually like I think a quarter German.
Oh, wow.
His mom, I think, was like half German.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And he got bullied for that as well. That's why he got picked up martial. I mean, please fact check me, put it in the comments or something like that. But tell me I'm completely wrong. But I think he got sort of ostracized from like his community because he wasn't like pure. And then that's why his anger towards like, you know, Japan and like being the outsider kind of, I think that's why a lot of his, I guess you're checking, like making sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the time's still going.
I think he was sort of, he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder because of that. Like, people didn't view him as like a part of, like, yeah, you're Chinese, but not like me kind of thing.
Gotcha,
you know? But I think it's definitely, I don't know is that a good, not, I won't say good or bad, but like, what does that even mean?
I feel like even the people that you're talking about that were biracial, probably experienced that from both sides of their cultures, you know.
I mean, when I walk into a room full with white people, they're like, look at that brown guy. Yeah. And then when I go into a room full of black people, they don't really consider me black, understandably. And I actually had we had not a debate, I had a discussion with my friend, a fellow artist. Her name is Dominique. She's really cool. Her art is amazing. But we had a discussion about, like, what is black? You know, what is, you know, and I do have ancestry. I mean, for those that don't know Puerto Rico, we're literally a mixture of everything. We're a mixture of indigenous, Taino. We're a mixture, and I'm sure most of South America has similar indigenous roots. European, you know, like Spaniard and even Italian. Black, like African black. My dad's grandma was just straight African. And my mom told me a story about she met her grandfather and he was on a horse with long straight hair, and she was like, oh yeah, he was beautiful. It was like, first time I saw a beautiful man. And I'm like, really? And she said he was just straight up indigenous. And I'm like, oh, and that's when you get me years later. Like, I don't know what I am. But I mean, going back to the whole mix thing, it's weird because I can't speak for other cultures or countries, but in the United States, it's very literally black and white. And then when you're checking off these like boxes, like, you know, white, black, and then indigenous, and I'm like, I can pretty much check off any of these. Like,
yeah, it's pretty much like, what is it? It's white, black, Asian, Latino, and then
or non-white Latino or non-white Hispanic sometimes.
Yeah.
And
then the thing is,
other, like, what? Like,
yeah, like let's say people from India and things like that, they check off Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. Isn't Turkey in Asia, right? People, that's like a big misconception, right? Or is it in both Europe and
I don't
Asia?
know.
Okay.
I really don't.
Yeah, because it's on the border there near like Russia and China, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid, I fell in love with Bjork. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this Asian woman's like so attractive, and I found out later on she wasn't Asian. She was like, I think, Icelandic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, she's Icelandic? She looks really like Asian. And it's, I mean, I don't even know anything about the history of Iceland, but I'm definitely pretty sure there's a lot of indigenous.
Yeah, Iceland is awesome. They have a lot of art, a lot of music. I was into
You been
Bjork
there?
music. No, I have not been there yet. I've always wanted to go. But they do have that look. It's kind of like Nordic, but yet still almost like, you know, like, I guess what's the culture that's like in Alaska?
Eskimo?
Kind of.
Is that like politically correct to say that?
I'm not sure if that's what it is, but there's like, I think
Inuit.
Yeah, I think like if you mix Inuit with Nordic, I think you kind of get like that. It's Icelandic.
Okay.
Look for me on some people, especially more like her, because she does have, like you said, an Asian look.
But then while I was an undergrad student, getting my art history minor, I found out that she was married to Matthew Barney, and Matthew Barney is a sort of really well-known performance artist from way back when. I think he's still making art this day, but after that I was like, I don't think I'm a fan of her anymore. He's a weird guy. The artwork is interesting. Then you found that
a little too much.
It was like, okay, it's kind of odd. It's like artists are weird because you actually don't want to find out too much about the artist that you admire, because when you dig in too deep, you're gonna find things you really don't like.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's like, okay, I like it superficially, but if I go deeper in this, I'm gonna find something I really don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's perfect, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do have a question, because I brought this up I don't know how far we're along with this, but I brought this up on Facebook, and I kind of brought up in a serious way, but also because I really wanted to get a reaction from people. It was, who is the greatest active fighter in MMA today? And my conclusion was Amanda Nunes. And a lot of people were like completely against it. They're like, what? Get out of here. She'll lose against any male fighter. And I'm just, nope, I think it's Amanda Nunes. And I just rattled off her record and what she accomplished. And, actually, before I go off, but who do you think is the greatest fighter, current active fighter, to be specific?
Current active
not ever.
Fighter, the best? I would have to go definitely with John Jones. But
That's a big butt.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot of good feelings for him as a person, so I hate to say that.
Yeah, it's hard to separate the, I guess, artist with the art sometimes, or the fighter with the person,
Yeah, but the thing is with Amanda Nunes, I feel like Ronda was Hoist Gracie. You know what I mean, for the men. That's what I kind of.
She was equivalent. She was the person to introduce women's MMA.
Yeah, and then once
Gina Carano fans might be really upset with you right now.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But I just feel like she completely dominated her era. So with the jiu-jitsu, judo, but with the submissions. So I kind of said, all right, that's where women's MMA is at right now. Even though they were already doing mixed martial arts, until you got this new era with Amanda Nunes, and I feel like she's more along when Anderson Silva came in and just wiped everyone out, and it was a whole new ball game again. But I think pretty soon,
or you might even equate Amanda Nunes to Chuck Liddell, more of that, because
she's got a lot more tools, but she's showing her jiu-jitsu lately, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Are you saying Amanda Nunes?
Yeah, Amanda Nunes, yeah. And it's just she's got everything. So it's kind of tough, but I just feel like there's just going to be that next step for the women's MMA where it's now you got these girls that are doing this since 12. You know what I mean? Now you're going to have that John Jones of the girls.
There's this remarkable, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but this remarkable 16-year-old, I believe she's Asian, this Asian girl, an Eddie Bravo phenom, and she's 16. You see pictures of her, and not to bash, she looks very meek in some of these pictures. She's kind of just sitting there like this and very shy looking. But then you see her roll and go against some of these women, and she destroys them. And I'm in 10, not even less than 10 years. I mean, if this girl ever decides to actually get into MMA, this girl's gonna be amazing. But the reason why I think it's Amanda Nunes is this is my one argument that people can't really argue against. She's the only active fighter, double champ, that's defending both belts at the same time.
That's true. Yeah, that's one thing I've always wanted to see, someone going back to the weight class, like Henry Cejudo. Yeah. He said he was going to do that.
He didn't. He's like, thank you, and he dipped. He was like, I'm going to get fat.
Yeah.
He got chunky monkey. Yeah. He got a little chunky.
He said he's coming back, though, but it's funny because just a month ago, he took himself out of the USADA pool.
Yeah.
And then now he said he's coming back. So it's like, why?
And then you gotta wait another 6 months now.
Yep.
I think you gotta wait 6 months.
Unless you get the Brock Lesnar treatment, you know. But I don't think he'll get that because he's not going to draw 2 million pay-per-view buyers.
I mean, Brock Lesnar, you know, he just ate a lot of horse meat. Actually, that was Overeem's, I don't say excuse, but his reasoning on why he got so big so quickly. He just said, well, in Holland, you know, horse meat is completely legal. You know, you can eat horse, you know, anywhere. I'm like, that is not, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No.
That was an excuse also. Like, I think the Mexican national team for soccer got popped for you know, juice, and they said it was the meat that they were eating.
Really?
It contained steroid muscle. And
I'm not a scientist in any way.
Bill
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and going back to the Facebook comment, like, people were legit like mad, like, or it seemed like it, and I'm like, nope, I think she's the best, and you can't name anyone that has been defending both 2 belts at the same time. I know, I mean, but the thing is, like, there's one time when Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, was considered the pound for pound best.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Mm-hmm.
But you would never use the argument, yeah, but if he fought, you know, Stipe, he would lose. Like, obviously.
Yeah,
like,
you
obviously.
can't make
like,
a big Mighty Mouse version. And
yeah,
that
like,
make sense.
this is why these arguments are hypothetical and should not ever be taken seriously.
You know what my one mark against Mighty Mouse was? That he wouldn't go up to fight Dillashaw.
Yeah.
Right? He wouldn't go up and wait. And that's why I like Cejudo, because he came in, won the belt, and immediately went up. You know, he was like, fuck this, I'm going for 3 belts. And I like Henry Cejudo a lot, even though he's so cringe, you know, and that's his thing.
He embraces it.
Yeah, but
he embraces it.
I don't even use that word really, but that's his thing, to be cringe on purpose.
Yeah, quadruple C or triple C. I don't know.
Yeah, triple Z.
But yeah, it's a very. But again, the whole pound for pound greatest active fighter, greatest fighter ever. These are all hypothetical. They're fun topics, and they're constantly is being brought up because there's no like, those are just fun MMA topics to talk about. But one thing that upsets me about the UFC, and like I think they're doing what they did to Anderson Silva. It could be a language thing. I have no clue what the issue is. But Manny Nunes, I know I look like I'm just a brown noser right now. I'm like up her butt right now. But she's a lesbian, openly lesbian. First technically openly gay MMA fighter ever. I mean, I can't think of a male that's openly gay.
No, yeah.
There's some people.
Females, it was I know who it was that fought in the UFC. Was the girl that fought Rousey first?
Yeah, Carmouche.
Yeah, Liz Carmouche.
Liz Carmouche. Yeah. I don't know how I remember that. But like, so she's openly gay, married, or has a civil union. I don't know if she's married or has a civil union. I'm not really sure. Has a child too. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why am I not seeing gay pride flags everywhere? Like, what is happening? LGBTQ community, get on this. Like, what is going on? Like, I mean, I'm sympathetic, but like, I tell this to like my friends who are gay and lesbian, which have abundant, because if you're an artist, you're gonna have a lot of, you know, LGBTQ friends. I think there's more letters in there. LGBTQIA. I lose count of how many letters.
I think
but I have a lot of friends, and I'm like, I tell them about this fighter. They're like, I never heard of them. I'm like, what is going on? And I just get so mad at the UFC, like, you know, like, I don't know, they're just dropping the ball with her. Like,
yeah, I think they could definitely do better with her, but at the same time, I think maybe she's one of the fighters like Demetrius that when she's not on the clock, she's gone, you know, like gets her privacy, you know, in order.
Yeah, I mean, there's like Connor's always on the clock.
Yeah, always.
Like he's on everything.
Cyborg too. She's always like doing stuff online, and she's got Cyborg Nation. She always shouts out.
Really?
That just makes me crack up every time she says that, Cyborg Nation. But,
yeah, I just think it's weird that imagine having a boss. Hypothetically, just imagine having a boss that would always just mock how you looked all, not even a boss.
That's
having a person that you're in the same field that would just mock you all the time about your physical features.
And they have like a big like voice in the
yeah, and then like somehow they become your boss. It's like, how awkward is that? I'm talking about Dana White and Cyborg. How they like he literally called her like a compared to Vanderlei Silva in a dress, and I'm like, I mean,
I'm just laughing at the situation, not at the comment.
Yeah, not the comment, but it's like that's ridiculous. But then, I mean, he has his opinions. He talks a lot, but it was just fine. I mean, I'm not Dana White, obviously. Yeah. But
and even Joe Rogan fell into that trap too.
But like, how I would feel awkward if I said those words and she was sitting right there. I'd be like, "How are you?"
Yeah.
How are you today?
She probably hit you really like with a good shot too. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't fuck around with that. But I mean, that might not be the only reason I wouldn't say that. But still, you know, like on top of that, she's like a world-class fighter
and just being respectful.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
she's a human.
Yeah,
just being a human being, you know.
Yeah. First off, that's the main reason. Yeah, you don't really do that about anything, but still, like he's got balls because I mean, she could just fucking punch him.
Just punch him in the face.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many topics, stuff we want to, or at least I want to talk about, like movies and comedy, and even I have my list here, like relationship train wrecks and mistakes, or like weird jobs and stuff like that. I don't even know. I think one thing, because I'm in a relationship and you are as well, and I'm not a relationship guru. I don't think you are either. No. Is there?
I'm more of like being single guru.
Actually, like I guess you can. I don't have an exact question, but I realize now that I have a partner, I'm really good at being single, and I'm really good at being in a committed relationship. I'm terrible at the in between.
Okay. Yeah.
At the meeting someone, getting to know them, figuring out what do they like me as a friend. That dating I hate to say courtship because it's like that's such a weird word to say, courtship, but like that transition between seeing the person, acknowledging them, going on a date, the friendship relationship part, and I'm bad at that part, but once I'm in a relationship, I'm like, oh, I'm good, it's fine. But everything in between is a train wreck.
Yeah, I feel like that in between part was where I was for a really long time.
This is where a lot of guys get in trouble.
Yeah. I had a few good, solid relationships, and then I was in between for a really long time. And so that I'm really good at that part. But but yeah, being really single, I'm not good at. But I meant single, that kind of single, like, you know, in the mix.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. I mean, similar to like high school, like, hey, like, would you do high school again? No. But if I did, I'll tell myself like different pieces of advice. Like, would I want to date again ever? No. I told her this has to work because I'm never dating ever again. Like, this is ridiculous. But it's like I would never want to date again. And I know it's not. I mean, I've had male students tell me like, hey, like, I just want to have a girlfriend just to have sex with. And I'm like, well, thank you for being honest. That's not how it works. He's like, but Mr. Okendo, I'm like, being honest. I'm like, you're being blunt and rude. That's not like, but, and it's this weird, at least for me, a really weird, like, thing. Like, one, I mean, obviously, I have the stereotype, like, single mom. I'm the youngest of 3. Dad is kind of absent. He's there, but not really there. Not to crap on my dad, but like he taught me everything what not to do. Okay. You know.
Gotcha.
I mean, I can't say he taught me any lessons, but I'm like, okay, like you see someone like, you know, walk into a wall several times. I'm like, don't do that. I'm not going to be that person. But yeah. So growing up, I always had a hard time figuring out like how to actually date and talk to people, and it took me a long. I don't even think I figured it out. I just think I got lucky with this person. It took her 12, or not took her, it took me 12 years because I known her for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And we met in college in 2008 and grew a friendship, and there was lots of ups and downs, and we fell apart as a friends, and we came back together as friends, and she saw me date different people, and I didn't see her date anybody from my understanding, and then like we kind of just.
Did you guys ever show any interest before?
Oh yeah,
years?
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. There were some fun moments. there was a bunch of fun moments, but that's the thing. I guess we can use the word sex. I don't really know the rating of like how are we PG-13 or I don't know, clue, but I realize, sex is not an exchange. I used to view it that way. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I have desires, you have desires, I think. Let's, fill our desires. And no, that's not a thing. Yeah. Sex is not an exchange in any way. If you do it that way, yeah, you're gonna.
I think that's the only time that works out is when it was like you don't have a relationship, and when people say like friends with benefits and no strings attached.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
that's not a thing.
That you can see even that.
It would. I can't say men, but people want it to be a thing. It's a good it's a good idea. Marxism is a good idea on paper, but when you apply it, it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
So I guess you can say friends with benefits on paper is like, oh, this is a good thing. And then you just apply it, and that's people are weird. People are people. And they do things, and you do things, and it's really it becomes a terrible thing. But I have a funny dating story, and I don't know. I guess it'll be the last story. You can decide. But I met this girl in grad school. I went to Montclair State University. I think with the Red Hawks.
Shout out to the Red Hawks.
Yeah, Red Hawks. It's weird.
Shout out to that little diner that's always open.
Red Hawk. I think it's called Red Hawk Diner, or no? It's on Route 3. I forget. But we actually went on a date there one time. But it's weird. Pompton Lakes, Cardinals, red. Rutgers, Scarlet Knights, red. And then went to Montclair State, which was Red Hawks. But anyway, she was this sort of a dance major. And off the bat, it was just a train wreck. I'm just awkward and don't know how to talk in any way, shape, or form. I can tell she was trying. She was like, I think you're cute. And you're really awkward, and you don't make any sense half the time, but I'm going to try. And we've been on actually a few dates, and it was a pretty cool interaction. And then I studied abroad for 2 months. So we chatted once or twice. And then when I came back, I called her. She never picked up. I called her again, didn't pick up. Texted her a bunch of times, didn't respond. And me being a dumbass, I'm like, let me be persistent, because girls love persistent guys, right? Yeah. That's no, okay, read the signs, which the sign is I don't want to talk to you. And again, by the way, if someone doesn't want to talk to you, they don't have to give you a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
And some guys, like me, feeling hurt, I feel like this is ridiculous. She has to respond to me, because I felt this sort of this weird, I guess you can say, privilege to I'm calling, you have to pick up, you have to respond. This is you're being the rude one, not me. Yeah. Anyway, I kept doing this for months, just texting, calling. And one day I was over at my friend Simon's house, who's also a jiu-jitsu black belt now. She texted me and said, listen, you're harassing me. Stop calling me. Don't respond to this text, period. And I sat there, and my friend's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I think I've been harassing this girl. I didn't even know it. And he's like, what? She just said, stop talking to me. And I started rehearsing everything in my head. I was like, oh, this was a learning, this is a learning time for me. I just learned that, sometimes, there's no, how you can say, nice bow at the end of a relationship. Sometimes they just end.
Yeah.
And they don't need to explain anything to you. They don't need to justify it. They can just say nothing. And you need to just be like, okay, and learn. And then that's it. Because you usually think, well, let me talk to them. What did I do wrong? All that kind of stuff. But that's not always the case.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I can really relate to that.
Can you?
Because I had a girlfriend that went abroad, but she dumped me.
Oh,
yes.
Look at that.
And you know what? To be honest, maybe I'm in the same position, but you didn't dump. But what I'm saying, like, when you went abroad and you said communication wasn't that.
Yeah, it was sort of off and on. Like, not really.
I took that really personal.
Okay.
That there was, not that I wanted to be on the phone with my girl, like
24/7.
Yeah, not at all. But just the very lack of communication got me upset. You know what I mean? And then, of course, looking back, even then, I just wished her to have the best time of her life, But you just feel like, being that you're in a relationship, they can check in with you or something,
But yeah, just like relationships, just like words are tough, relationships are tough as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, the question was like any train wrecks, and I kind of just went off on a story tangent there. Yeah. But I'm 35. I don't know how old are you?
I'm turning 35.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Mm-hmm. But we're not old. But I think, I don't know about you, but for me, I think I have something to say. I remember there was an interview with Kanye West some years ago, and he was just off Twitter for about a year. And during his interview, they said, well, this 2018 or whatever, you didn't do anything on social media, on Twitter. And he said, why? He's like, oh, because I just had nothing to say. And I feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like now I learned a lot. I'm in a healthy relationship, steady job. I have debt still, but paying that off little by little. Black belt and jiu-jitsu, artists and whatnot. I think I have something to say.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes any sense, but it has something to say.
That's why I like podcasts, because I do have a lot to say, but I can relate to the Kanye thing too, because musically, lately with lyrics, when I've been putting it, people say like put it on a pedestal.
Right.
I don't know, something about the way I've developed in my process of thinking, like I just feel like, when I read lyrics online and stuff like that of new music, I'm just like, I wouldn't feel fine just throwing some lyrics together. Like I wanted to say so much, and then
right.
It just becomes complicated, and I feel like I don't have anything to say, and I've just been more working on just music,
right.
with no vocals. It just kind of happened to me as a musician. So
that's pretty interesting. Sadly, I'm not a musician in any way. I appreciate music, but I cannot play any. I might play a triangle pretty well if you gave me a triangle. Maybe a recorder. I think I could play a recorder pretty well, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll collab on a song, on a beat, and I'll help guide you.
We'll see.
I've gotten some family members that haven't played any music, and I'll have them drop a little something, and I'll just sample it, and then like produce it a little.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we'll work on something.
But I don't know how long we are with time. You know what? It's just like any conversation. Like I'm great at this called the Irish goodbye. Ever heard the Irish goodbye?
Yeah, I'm also the same.
Is when you're at a party or to get together and you just sort of just like leave and you don't say anything. Sadly, we can't do that in a podcast. We actually have to conclude somehow. I mean, I wish I could just like get up and go and leave you by yourself.
I just pictured that actually.
Yeah, like okay.
That's the way we end the podcast.
Andrew Santino, he has two podcasts, but one of them is called Whiskey Ginger. Mm-hmm. And how he concludes a podcast, do you know how he does it?
No.
He actually says, okay, I'm going to leave, and you're going to look at the camera and say the last words. And they just, they say Lindsay Lohan. I don't know. They say something random. Sometimes it's actually very profound. Sometimes it's just really like silly. But that's how he concludes it. I don't really know how we can conclude our podcast. I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And then you know what else you said? You said something else that was tough besides words. I was thinking,
relationships?
Did we do that? next episode, like find something else that's tough.
I guess. Or we could be like, that jingle. Remember, kids, words are tough. And then you just see our outro, I guess. I don't know.
So I guess, if you guys have any ideas, things you want us to do on the next podcast, just leave us some comments or send us some messages.
Or we can actually pick a word that's really hard to say. Some weird, obscure word. I have no clue. We'll figure it out. We're just winging this right now. So.
Yeah, but we'll definitely have some good ideas moving forward that we definitely want you to tune in for. So yeah. It was a nice first episode for you. I'm telling you, even though before we got started it seemed a little more hectic, this was like smooth sailing for the podcast that I've started at other times.
Great. I'm actually very tired, but and I gotta go to work.
I fell asleep for 5 minutes. I don't know if you noticed that. But guys, thanks so much for checking us out. I'll be reaching out to you guys on social media, and give us some pointers, anything you want to see on the future episodes.
So David Oquendo,
Jose Rodriguez,
WordsrTough.
Later.